Using his jacket as a makeshift umbrella, Robert hurried out of his car, eager to escape the relentless downpour. Just as he reached for his front door, a faint whimper pierced through the sound of rain pounding against the ground. He froze, his curiosity piqued despite the miserable weather. The sound was faint but insistent, tugging at his instincts to investigate. He turned toward his yard, his sneakers squishing in the rain-soaked grass as he followed the source. Near the edge of his property, beneath the dense cover of a rhododendron bush, he found it, a tiny, trembling figure, drenched and shivering. The creature was curled up tightly, its wet fur matted with mud. Two wide, frightened eyes stared back at him. "Hey, little guy," Robert whispered, crouching low and extending a hand. He assumed it was a stray puppy, abandoned in the storm. His heart clenched at the sight of its frail body. Speaking softly, he tried to coax it closer, offering the promise of warmth and safety. Slowly, the creature crept toward his outstretched hand, its tiny body quaking with each hesitant step. With care, Robert scooped it up, wrapping it snugly in his jacket. Its small frame trembled against his chest as he hurried inside. Once inside his cozy home, the earthy scent of rain-soaked wood mingled with the mellow tunes of jazz softly playing from the corner. He placed the trembling creature on a soft towel by the fireplace, rubbing it dry with gentle strokes. It wasn't long before he noticed something peculiar. As he examined the little animal, its appearance didn't match any dog breed he'd ever seen. Its ears were unusually long, and the pattern of its coat seemed strange, almost wild. Despite his growing curiosity, Robert's compassion won out. He warmed up some milk and shredded chicken, which the creature devoured hungrily. As the creature settled by the fire, curling into a tight ball, Robert observed it closely. Its sharp, alert glances and unervingly quiet demeanor didn't align with the playful exuberance of a typical puppy. Questions began swirling in his mind. Where had it come from? Why was it alone? Deciding it would be best to consult an expert, Robert made plans to visit the local vet the following morning. He hoped to check for a microchip and perhaps find its rightful owners. But tonight, the creature would stay safe and warm, its presence filling the quiet of his home with an unusual sense of intrigue. The next day dawned sunny and crisp, a sharp contrast to the previous night's storm. Robert prepared for his Saturday routine, a brisk hike through the nearby hills, followed by a hearty breakfast. This time, however, he had an additional task: getting his new companion ready for the vet. He offered the creature a small plush toy, trying to lighten its mood, but it remained indifferent. Its gaze fixated on the window, as though longing for something beyond the glass. Robert couldn't shake the odd feeling that this wasn't an ordinary puppy. Its unresponsive behavior and strange features fueled his unease, but he dismissed the thought. "You've just had a rough start," he murmured, clipping on a makeshift leash. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, Robert led the creature out the door, ready to uncover the mystery surrounding his enigmatic guest. Robert loaded Storm into his car, determined to get some answers about his unusual companion. They headed to the local veterinary clinic, where Robert hoped Dr. Sophia Ellis, the trusted local vet, could shed some light on the creature's peculiarities. However, upon arrival, the receptionist greeted him with an apologetic smile and explained that Dr. Sophia was out unexpectedly due to a family emergency. The clinic could only offer routine vaccinations and flea treatments that day, none of which seemed relevant to Robert's mysterious situation. He was informed that Dr. Peterson, a substitute vet, would be available starting the following week. On the drive back, Robert couldn't shake the sense of unease. Storm, now seated calmly in the back seat, appeared oddly relieved to be heading home. The creature's sharp eyes occasionally met his in the rearview mirror, holding an inscrutable expression that seemed too knowing for what Robert believed to be a puppy. His mind churned with unanswered questions, each new observation further complicating the puzzle Storm presented. As the days turned into a tentative routine, Robert's initial curiosity about Storm grew into genuine intrigue. Naming the creature, Storm, felt fitting, given its stormy entry into his life and its watchful, almost calculating nature. Each morning, while Robert brewed coffee and prepared for his day, Storm paced the length of the living room. Its movements were precise, almost deliberate, as if scanning the surroundings. The plush toys and chew bones Robert had bought on a whim remained untouched. Instead, Storm's focus seemed fixed on the world outside the window, its gaze intense and unwavering, like that of a sentry on patrol. Nighttime brought another layer of mystery. Storm often positioned itself at the foot of Robert's bed, ears twitching and eyes fixed on the darkened corners of the room. The silence of the night was broken by low, mournful howls, sounds that sent a chill through Robert. These weren't the playful yips of a young dog, they were deep, guttural cries, wild and haunting. It was as if Storm were calling out to something, or perhaps warning of an unseen presence. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, Robert turned to his blog for answers. Initially a platform for sharing his coding projects and hiking adventures, it became an outlet for documenting Storm's behavior. His followers were captivated by one particular entry, "Is my puppy not a puppy?" which sparked a flood of comments and engagement. Theories poured in, ranging from skeptical humor to genuine concern. Some followers suggested that Storm could be a wolf-dog hybrid or a rare breed with wild ancestry. Others offered more imaginative ideas, speculating that Robert might have stumbled upon a creature rarely seen in suburban North Carolina. Local animal enthusiasts chimed in, noting Storm's heightened alertness and nocturnal howls as potential signs of something more primal. As the discussions grew, so did Robert's determination to uncover the truth about his enigmatic companion. The ordinary life he once knew was slipping away, replaced by a growing sense of wonder and unease. Robert's curiosity turned into a determination to uncover the truth. His blog posts grew increasingly detailed, with each new behavior meticulously documented and shared. Storm's reluctance to engage in typical dog activities, its unique vocalizations, and its intense focus on its surroundings became hot topics of discussion among Robert's rapidly growing audience. The blog, once a quiet corner of the internet, transformed into a lively hub of speculation and debate. As the weekend faded into the workweek, the mystery surrounding Storm only deepened. Robert felt compelled to seek professional insight. After days of relentless online speculation and his own increasing unease, he decided it was time for another attempt at the vet. With a mix of anticipation and apprehension, he scheduled a visit with Dr. Peterson, hoping for answers. Little did Robert know that this visit would flip his suburban routine on its head and lead him into an unexpected adventure. Arriving at the clinic, the usual chaos of suburban pet life unfolded around him. A limping Labrador wagged its tail, a hissing cat protested from its carrier, and anxious pet owners filled the waiting area. Robert felt the knot of excitement and nerves tighten in his chest. Holding Storm's leash firmly, he led the mysterious creature inside. Storm's presence immediately drew attention. A woman walking to the reception desk whispered something to her companion, her wide eyes flicking toward Robert and Storm with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Her companion, a stocky man holding a calm golden retriever, glanced at Storm briefly before quickly averting his gaze when Robert caught him staring. The murmured speculations and curious glances added to Robert's own doubts. Was Storm truly just a rare breed, or was there something much more unusual about his companion? Each hushed conversation around him seemed to echo his swirling thoughts, amplifying the surreal nature of the past week. Finally, their number was called. As Robert and Storm approached the examination room, Storm's body tensed, its posture rigid with unease. Sensing the growing anxiety, Robert patted Storm gently to reassure it, but as they neared the door, Storm's instincts kicked in. With a sudden, powerful jerk, it slipped out of Robert's grasp and bolted. Chaos erupted in the waiting area. The Labrador barked, the cat let out an ear-splitting screech, and startled children squealed as Storm darted through chairs and past startled pet owners. Robert's heart pounded as he called out, chasing after the blur of fur. The vet's assistant, a quick-thinking young man named Jake, joined the pursuit. The chase ended in a storage room stacked with pet supplies, where Jake cornered Storm. Panting heavily, Robert and Jake managed to restrain the trembling creature, its wide eyes darting with panic. Back in the examination room, Robert muttered apologies to the other pet owners, his face flushed with embarrassment and concern. Inside, Dr. Peterson greeted them with a raised eyebrow and a calm demeanor. "Quite the spirited one, isn't it?" he remarked, shutting the door behind them with a knowing smile. The room fell silent, save for Storm's labored breathing, now securely restrained by Jake. Robert stood frozen, his anxious eyes meeting Dr. Peterson's calm yet curious gaze. Questions swirled in Robert's mind, each one tinged with anticipation and a hint of dread. Could this finally be the moment ere the mystery of Storm's identity was unveiled? Dr. Peterson, a seasoned veterinarian with decades of experience, approached Storm with practiced precision. His movements were deliberate but cautious, an expert assessing a creature that might not be what it seemed. Starting with a gentle palpation of Storm's abdomen, he ran his hands over the animal's body, noting its wiry frame and taut muscles. Storm remained eerily compliant, its sharp eyes darting around the room, taking in every detail as if preparing for an escape. Occasionally, curious onlookers from the waiting room peered through the observation window, drawn by the earlier chaos. When Dr. Peterson inspected Storm's teeth, his brows furrowed deeply. They were unlike those of any domestic dog he had ever encountered, longer, sharper, and perfectly adapted for tearing flesh. These were not the teeth of a house pet, they were the tools of a predator. The vet stepped back slightly, his professional demeanor slipping just enough to reveal unease. His fingers hovered over his clipboard as he began taking more notes, the tension in the room growing with every observation. "Tell me," Dr. Peterson began, his tone probing yet calm, "what do you call this animal? How exactly did you find it, and how long has it been with you? Is this the first time it's been seen by a veterinarian?" Robert recounted the story of how he had found Storm during the storm, curled up and shivering in the bushes. He explained how he had mistaken it for a stray puppy and taken it home, hoping to give it shelter and safety. With every word, Dr. Peterson's expression shifted, his brows arching higher as if Robert's answers were only deepening the mystery. After a moment of reflection, the vet exchanged a quick glance with Jake and sighed, his disbelief almost palpable. Then, as gently as he could, Dr. Peterson dropped the bombshell. "Robert," he said, his voice carrying both authority and gravity, "this isn't a puppy. What you've brought in is a baby hyena." Robert blinked, the weight of the words landing like a punch. "A hyena?" he echoed, struggling to process the revelation. Dr. Peterson nodded and softened his tone. "Yes, a spotted hyena, to be precise. It's rare to see one this young in this area. Likely, its condition and malnourishment made it harder to identify at first glance, but these teeth and other features leave no doubt." The room felt heavier as Robert grappled with the shocking truth. Storm's wiry coat and unusual markings, details he had chalked up to its mysterious origins, suddenly made sense. The creature he had sheltered and cared for was not a lost puppy but a wild animal, one with instincts and needs far beyond his initial understanding. Dr. Peterson explained the implications of Storm's true identity in measured tones, emphasizing that hyenas, while fascinating, were not just unusual but also potentially dangerous in a domestic setting. They required specialized care and environments that catered to their wild instincts and behaviors. As he made arrangements to contact animal control and a local wildlife sanctuary, the room hummed with activity. Realizing the need for secure handling, Dr. Peterson leaned toward Jake and whispered, "Prepare a spacious and comfortable enclosure. We need to ensure both safety and minimal stress for the animal." His calm, professional demeanor reassured Robert, who watched the preparations with a mix of apprehension and sorrow. Robert hesitated before voicing his concern. "Is this really necessary? Storm hasn't shown any aggression. He's been calm and responsive." Dr. Peterson placed a reassuring hand on Robert's shoulder. "I understand how you feel," he said kindly. "This isn't a punishment. Hyenas are wild animals, and while Storm may seem tame now, his instincts remain unpredictable. This is about prioritizing his well-being and ensuring the safety of everyone involved. The cage is simply a precaution to ease the transition." He went on to explain that even juvenile hyenas could be unpredictable, especially in high-stress environments like a veterinary clinic. The enclosure they had prepared was designed with care, spacious, lined with soft bedding, and placed in a quieter area to minimize Storm stress. Robert nodded, though the explanation did little to lessen the heavy feeling in his chest. As Jake carefully moved Storm into the prepared enclosure, the young hyena seemed to sense the shift. His wide, curious eyes peered through the bars, and Robert felt a pang of guilt as he watched. He had taken Storm in with the best intentions, never imagining their bond would lead to this moment. Sitting in the dimly lit isolation room where Storm's enclosure had been placed, Robert struggled to reconcile his emotions. He thought back to the night he found Storm, trembling in the rain, and the days that followed as they developed a connection. This wasn't just about rescuing a stray, it had been about offering comfort and care to a creature in need. But now, Robert realized, true care meant making the harder choice, letting Storm go so he could live as he was meant to, in an environment designed for his nature. Storm, sensing Robert's emotions, moved closer to the side of the cage. Robert hesitated before extending his hand through the bars, unsure of how Storm would respond. To his surprise, the young hyena nudged his head against Robert's fingers and gave a gentle lick, a gesture of trust and gratitude. The moment was fleeting but profound, encapsulating the bond they had formed in their brief time together. Dr. Peterson entered the room, his expression softening as he saw Robert and Storm's interaction. "The wildlife experts will be here soon," he said. "They'll ensure Storm is safely transported to the sanctuary." Robert nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He watched as Storm rested more calmly, appearing less frightened now, as though he too understood that this was the best course of action. For the first time that day, Robert felt a sense of peace. He had done his part to protect and care for Storm, and now it was time to entrust him to experts who could provide what he truly needed. When the wildlife specialists arrived, Robert stood by as they carefully prepared Storm for transport. He whispered a soft goodbye, his hand lingering briefly on the cage. Storm met his gaze one last time, his expressive eyes holding a quiet understanding. As the vehicle carrying Storm disappeared down the road, Robert felt an ache of loss but also a sense of fulfillment. This experience had taught him not only the depth of human-animal connections but also the importance of respecting the wild nature of creatures like Storm. The story highlights profound lessons about empathy, responsibility, and the importance of understanding nature's balance. One of the key takeaways is the significance of recognizing and respecting the boundaries between humans and wildlife. Animals, whether domesticated or wild, come into our lives for a reason, often teaching us valuable lessons about coexistence, compassion, and the selfless act of caring for another being. Robert's journey with Storm reminds us that while our intentions may stem from kindness, it's vital to approach every situation with knowledge and awareness, especially when dealing with creatures of the wild. This story also underscores the power of letting go for the greater good, understanding that some bonds, no matter how deep, must be cherished from a distance to ensure mutual well-being. In our daily lives, this translates to making thoughtful decisions that consider the bigger picture, whether it's caring for a pet, aiding in wildlife conservation, or simply showing compassion toward others. It's a gentle reminder that sometimes the most loving act is stepping back and allowing someone, or something, to thrive in an environment that best suits their nature. By fostering this understanding, we enrich not only the lives we touch but also our own, building a world rooted in respect and harmony. Would you have let Storm go free like Robert did? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales. Robert's journey reminds us that love often means making difficult decisions, and that true care comes from respecting the nature of all living beings. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.